Matteo, 32. For 8 years, I truly believed Isabella and I were building an unbreakable future. Every shared dream, every sacrificed penny for our wedding fund, it was all real to me. That was the lie I lived. Then, at 2:47 a.m., a WhatsApp notification ripped through the silence. Isabella's engagement party was long over, but she wasn't home. I expected a silly selfie. Instead, a photo from El Nido, a downtown bar, showed my fiancée, my bride-to-be, draped over some man's lap, her face flushed with more than just alcohol. Could 8 years of love be a lie? Her arms around a stranger, a caption boasting, "Last night of freedom," and a comment from her maid of honor confirming the oops. In less than an hour, my entire world imploded. Still wearing her little black dress from the party, makeup smeared, she burst through the door, oblivious to the digital wildfire I'd just started. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story resonates with you, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. There wouldn't be a wedding, but the show was just beginning. The WhatsApp notification pinged at 2:47 a.m., but I was already awake, staring at the ceiling and wondering why my fiancée, Isabella, hadn't come home yet. Her engagement party was supposed to have ended hours ago. I grabbed my phone, expecting maybe a tipsy message or a blurry selfie with her friends. Instead, I found myself looking at a photo that sent an icy chill down my spine. There was Isabella, my bride-to-be of 8 years, sitting on some man's lap at El Nido, a bar downtown. Her arms were wrapped around his neck, her face flushed with alcohol and something else I didn't want to name. The man's face was partially turned away, but I could see enough. An expensive linen shirt, a confident smile, the kind of man who thought he owned whatever room he walked into. The caption read, "Last night of freedom. Thanks, girls, for the wildest engagement ever. No regrets from last night as a single woman." My hands shook as I scrolled through the comments. Her friends were all laughing, posting fire emojis and, "Get it, girl," messages. Sophia, her maid of honor, had written, "What happens at the engagement party stays at the engagement party." Oops. I stared at that photo for 10 minutes, my mind racing. 8 years together. 8 years of building a life, planning a future, talking about children and a home, and growing old together. Our wedding fund, nearly 800,000 sols, saved for our dream day, for our future. And this was how she celebrated our upcoming marriage. Without thinking, I screenshotted the photo and posted it to my own social media profile with a simple caption, "First night of freedom." Actually, I changed my relationship status to single and tagged everyone who mattered, including her father, Ricardo Montoya, the most uptight pharmaceutical executive in all of Lima. Then I waited. The response was immediate and explosive. My phone started buzzing with notifications, comments, and messages. Friends, family, co-workers, everyone had something to say. Some were supportive, others were shocked, but most were just hungry for drama. At 3:15 a.m., I heard Isabella's car in the driveway. She burst through the front door like a hurricane, her face twisted with rage. Still wearing her little black dress from the party, makeup smeared. She looked nothing like the composed executive I'd fallen in love with. "What in God's name is wrong with you, Matteo?" she screamed, waving her phone at me. "Are you completely insane?" I was sitting at our kitchen table, laptop open, watching the social media wildfire I'd started. Our vibrant district of San Isidro thrived on gossip, and I'd just given them the story of the year. Wrong with me? I stood up slowly. At 32, I'd learned to control my temper through years of navigating the city's streets and running my mural art business. But tonight, that control was hanging by a thread. I'm not the one grinding on strangers at my engagement party. It was just a joke. She threw her purse on the counter. Dios, you're so insecure. It was harmless fun. Harmless. I pulled up the photo on my laptop screen. This looks harmless to you. Isabella glanced at the image and her face went pale for just a second. Then the defiance came roaring back. You don't trust me after 8 years? That says everything about you. Not me. Who is he? Nobody. Just some random guy at the bar. Sophia dared me to take a photo. It meant nothing. But something in her voice told me she was lying. The way her eyes darted away, the slight tremor in her hands. I'd seen enough liars in my time to recognize the signs. My phone rang. Ricardo Montoya's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, Isabella hissed. I put it on speaker. Hello, Ricardo. Mateo Vargas. What in God's name is going on? Her father's voice was ice cold. I'm getting calls from half the city about some social media nonsense. Ask your daughter, Isabella. Explain yourself now. She grabbed the phone. Poppy, it's nothing. Mateo's having some kind of breakdown. The photo was just a silly joke. A joke that's now been shared 300 times, I said. The local news page just picked it up. Isabella's face went white. What? I refreshed my browser. Canal 8 Noticias. Local groom calls off wedding after viral engagement party photo. Congratulations, mi amor. You're famous. This is insane. She shouted. You're ruining everything over nothing. I'm ruining everything. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not the one who decided to dry hump a stranger 3 days before our wedding. Ricardo's voice crackled through the phone. That's enough, both of you. Isabella, come home. We'll discuss this like adults. After she left, I sat in my kitchen and watched the story explode across social media. Friends from high school were commenting. My old art collaborators were weighing in. Even my elderly neighbor, Donna Elena, had somehow found the post and left a string of shocked face emojis. But as the adrenaline faded, a nagging feeling settled in my gut. Isabella's reaction had been too extreme, too defensive. And that man in the photo, there was something familiar about him, even with his face partially hidden. I was going to find out who he was. The next morning brought a parade of phone calls, text messages, and unexpected visitors. Donna Elena knocked on my door at 7 a.m. with a plate of empanadas and a hungry look in her eyes. Such a shame, dear, she said, bustling into my kitchen uninvited. Though I have to say, I always wondered about that girl. Too ambitious, if you ask me. And those late nights at the office. Late nights? Oh, yes. Working until all hours, though, between you and me, I saw her car leave at 5:30 most days, then come back around 9 or 10. Strange way to work late, don't you think? I filed that information away and called my best friend, Javier, who managed a popular cevicheria in Miraflores. If anyone knew the local gossip, it was Javier. Dude, you broke the internet, he said when he answered. Half the city's talking about it. The other half is sharing memes. I need a favor. Can you meet me for lunch? Already clearing my schedule. We met at Javier's cevicheria during the slow afternoon shift. Javier poured me a chicha morada and slid a plate of chicharrón de pescado across the bar. So, what's the real story? He asked. I showed him the photo again. Look at this guy. Really look at him. Javier studied the screen. Then his eyes widened. Holy crap. Is that Alejandro Vargas? Who's Alejandro Vargas? Regional Sales Director at Montoya Pharmaceuticals. Ricardo's golden boy. Drives a luxury SUV. Thinks he's God's gift to women. He comes in here sometimes with clients. Javier paused. Mateo, if Isabella's messing around with Alejandro Vargas, this is bigger than just cheating. That guy's her boss's boss. The pieces started clicking into place. The late nights, the defensive reaction, the panic in her eyes when I posted that photo. This wasn't just about a drunken mistake at an engagement party. I need to know for sure. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to do some investigating. Javier grinned. Count me in. But first, you should know your little social media stunt cost Alejandro some serious face. Word is Ricardo called him into the office this morning. The whole company's buzzing about it. That afternoon, I drove to Isabella's office building and parked across the street. At 5:30, just like Donna Elena had said, Isabella walked out to her car, but instead of driving home, she pulled out of the parking lot and headed toward Miraflores. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding. She drove to the exclusive condominio Las Palmeras, the expensive complex by the waterfront. I watched her park and walk into Building C like she'd done it 100 times before. 20 minutes later, she emerged with a tall man in an expensive suit. Even from a distance, I recognized him from the photo. Alejandro Vargas. They got into his luxury SUV and drove off together. I sat in my truck for an hour processing what I'd just seen. This wasn't a one-night mistake. This was an affair. When I got home, I called my old army buddy, Ricardo Rico Sanchez, who now ran a private security company in Callao. I need help with something, I told him. What kind of help? The kind you're good at. Research, surveillance, maybe some creative problem solving. Rico chuckled. Sounds like someone's in trouble. What's the situation? I explained everything. The photo, the investigation, what I discovered about Alejandro. So, you want to know how deep this goes? I want to know everything. How long it's been going on, what they're planning, all of it. Give me 48 hours. The next morning brought more surprises. Sophia, Isabella's maid of honor, showed up at my door looking nervous. We need to talk, she said. I let her in, noting how she avoided eye contact. Look, Mateo, I feel terrible about all this. The photo thing got way out of hand. Did it? Or did it just expose what was already happening? She fidgeted with her purse strap. I don't know what you mean. Alejandro Vargas. How long has Isabella been seeing him? Sophia's face crumpled. I can't. I promised I wouldn't. Sophia, I saw them together yesterday. I know about the apartment. The only question is whether you're going to help me understand what's been going on or whether you're going to keep lying for her. She started crying then, mascara running down her cheeks. 6 months, she whispered. It started 6 months ago at the company retreat. She said it was just physical, that she loved you, but needed something exciting. She made me promise not to tell anyone. And you thought that was okay? I thought it would burn out. I thought she'd get it out of her system and marry you anyway. But then she started talking about maybe calling off the wedding, and I panicked. I thought if she had one last wild night, she'd realize what she was giving up. So the engagement party was what, a test. She wanted to see if she could walk away from him. But when he showed up at the bar, Sophia shook her head. She lit up like a Christmas tree. That's when I knew she was in love with him. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Not just the cheating, but the elaborate deception, the months of planning our wedding while she was planning her exit strategy. There's more, Sophia said quietly. Alejandro's been promising to leave his wife. He says once he gets the promotion to vice president, he'll have enough money to make a clean break. Isabella thinks they're going to run away together. His wife. Alejandro is married. Has been for 15 years, 2 kids in private school. I stared at her. And Isabella knows this? She thinks she's different, that he really loves her. This time, after Sophia left, I sat in my art studio, surrounded by the tools of my trade, and planned my next move. For 8 years, I'd been the steady, reliable guy. The one who fixed things when they broke, who kept his mouth shut and his head down. But Isabella and Alejandro had made one crucial mistake. They'd humiliated me publicly, thinking I'd just take it and fade away quietly. They were about to learn that the quiet ones are often the most dangerous when pushed too far. Rico called me at 6 a.m. on Friday with news. "Your girl's been busy," he said. "I've got hotel receipts, credit card statements, and enough text messages to write a romance novel. Want the highlights? Give me everything." They've been meeting twice a week for 6 months. Always the same hotel, the Hotel del Sol. Alejandro pays cash, but Isabella's been using her credit card for dinners, gifts, even lingerie. She's not exactly covering her tracks. What about the texts? That's where it gets interesting. Alejandro's been feeding her a line about getting promoted to VP, leaving his wife, the whole fairy tale. But I did some digging into his finances, Mateo. Leverage to the hilt. Big mortgage, kids' school tuition, country club memberships. He's not leaving his wife anytime soon. Does Isabella know that? Based on these messages, she's planning to move in with him after your wedding gets officially called off. She's already been looking at apartments. The betrayal cut deeper with each new detail. While I'd been planning our future, she'd been planning her escape. "There's one more thing," Rico said. "Alejandro's got a reputation at work. This isn't his first affair. Word is he's done this dance before. Promises to leave his wife, strings the woman along for months, then disappears when things get complicated. Send me everything you've got. Already in your email? What are you planning?" "I'm planning to give them exactly what they deserve." That evening, I drove to Javier's Cevicheria to meet him. The place was crowded with the usual Friday night crowd, but Javier had saved me a seat at the end where we could talk privately. "You look like hell," he said, sliding a pisco sour across the bar. "Feel worse. But I've got a plan." I filled him in on what Rico had discovered. Javier's expression grew darker with each detail. "So, what's the play?" "First, I'm going to have a conversation with Alejandro. Man to man. You sure that's smart? A guy like that probably has lawyers on speed dial. I'm not going to threaten him, just going to make sure he understands the situation." At 9 p.m., I drove to Condominio Las Palmeras and waited. Sure enough, Alejandro's luxury SUV pulled into the parking lot. I watched him walk toward Building C, then got out of my truck. "Alejandro Vargas." He turned, squinting in the dim light. "Who's asking?" "Mateo Vargas. I think you know who I am." His face went pale, but he tried to maintain his composure. "Look, if this is about that photo. It's about a lot more than the photo." I stepped closer, noting how he instinctively backed toward his car. For all his expensive clothes and smooth talk, Alejandro was soft. Probably hadn't been in a real fight since high school. "Here's what's going to happen," I said calmly. "You're going to end whatever this is with Isabella tonight. And you're going to stay away from her. You can't tell me what to do." "Actually, I can. See, I know about your wife, your kids, your mortgage payments. I know about the other women you've done this to. And I know that Ricardo Montoya values his company's reputation above everything else." Alejandro's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "You're threatening me. I'm informing you. There's a difference. Isabella is an adult. She can make her own choices. You're right. She can, but so can I." I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. A draft email to Ricardo Montoya with photos, hotel receipts, and text message screenshots attached. "One click sends this to your boss, your wife, and every gossip blog in Lima. Your choice." Alejandro stared at the phone, then at me. "You're bluffing." I hit send. Oops. The color drained from his face. "You son of a witch." He lunged at me. But years of navigating city streets and the physical demands of mural art had left me in better shape than his gym membership could match. I sidestepped his clumsy swing and grabbed his wrist, twisting his arm behind his back. "Here's some free advice," I said quietly. "Next time you want to destroy someone's life, make sure they don't know how to fight back." I released him and walked back to my truck, leaving him standing in the parking lot, probably wondering how fast he could update his resume. My phone started ringing before I even got home. First Isabella, then Ricardo, then numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. The next morning, I woke up to find my story had gone viral again. Someone had recorded video of my confrontation with Alejandro and posted it online. The comments were brutal, and most of them were on my side. "Local artist school's cheating boss. This is how you handle a homewrecker." Alejandro Vargas got what he deserved. At 10 a.m., Isabella showed up at my house. She looked like she hadn't slept, her usually perfect appearance disheveled and desperate. "You destroyed everything," she screamed the moment I opened the door. "I destroyed everything. That's rich. Alejandro lost his job. Ricardo fired him this morning. Good. How can you be so cruel? We love each other." I laughed. "Love, Isabella? You were a game to him, just like the other women he's done this to." "That's not true. Ask him about Carolina Mendez or Patricia Soto. Both former employees who thought they were special, too." Her face crumpled. "You're lying." "Am I? When's the last time you heard from Alejandro?" "Since yesterday, I mean." She pulled out her phone, and I could see her scrolling through messages. Her expression changed as she realized what I already knew. Alejandro had gone silent. "He's probably just figuring out what to do next," she said. But the confidence was gone from her voice. "He's probably figuring out how to explain this to his wife without losing half his assets in a divorce. You don't understand what we have." "I understand exactly what you have. 6 months of hotel rooms and lies. And now it's over." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact moment she realized I was right. Alejandro wasn't coming to rescue her. He wasn't leaving his wife. He wasn't even returning her calls. "I hate you," she whispered. "That's fine, but you're going to hate yourself more when you realize what you threw away." After she left, I called Javier. "How's it feel to be the most famous man in San Isidro?" he asked. "Like I'm just getting started." The next week brought a parade of consequences that rippled through our district like stones thrown in a pond. Alejandro Vargas disappeared entirely. Rumor had it his wife kicked him out, and he was staying in a motel while looking for work in another city. Isabella moved back in with her father, who was so embarrassed by the scandal that he barely left his house. But my former friends were a different story. It started with David and Carolina Mendez. Yes, the same Carolina that Alejandro had apparently seduced and discarded 2 years earlier. They'd been part of our regular social circle, weekend barbecues and game nights, the kind of friends you expect to have forever. David called me on Thursday evening. "We need to talk," he said, his voice cold. "About what?" "About what you did to Alejandro and to Isabella." "What I did?" "Don't play dumb, Mateo. You do realize Alejandro was having an affair with my fiancée, right? And that he did the same thing to your wife 2 years ago. That's different. Carolina and I worked through our problems. We're stronger now. So, I should have just let it slide, married Isabella anyway, and pretended nothing happened. You should have handled it privately, like an adult. Instead, you turned it into a public circus." The conversation went downhill from there. David accused me of being vindictive and cruel. I accused him of having selective memory about his own wife's affair. We both said things we couldn't take back. He wasn't the only one. Over the next few days, I heard from Tomas and Susana Robles, Marcos and Clara Soto, and several other couples from our social circle. The message was consistent: I'd gone too far. I was the villain in this story. It became clear that they'd been talking among themselves, building a narrative where I was the bad guy, and Isabella and Alejandro were the victims of my vindictive revenge plot. The breaking point came on Saturday night at Javier's cevicheria. I was having a quiet drink with Javier when David walked in with Tomás Robles and Marcos Soto. They spotted me immediately and made a beeline for my table. "Well, look who's here," David said loudly enough for half the restaurant to hear. "The district's newest celebrity." "David, don't do this here." "Why not? You didn't mind making your business public before." Tomás stepped closer. "You know what you are, Mateo. You're a bitter, small man who couldn't handle the fact that his woman found someone better." The restaurant went quiet. Everyone was watching now. Phones probably already recording. Someone better? I stood up slowly. "You mean a married man who was using her for love while lying about leaving his wife?" "At least Alejandro treated her like a queen," Marcos added. "When's the last time you took Isabella somewhere nice? When's the last time you bought her flowers or jewelry or made her feel special?" "I was saving for our wedding. You know, the one she was planning to skip out on." "Because you're boring," David shouted. "You're a street artist with no ambition, no class, no future. Isabella deserves better than painting murals for the rest of her life." The words hit like physical blows. These were supposed to be my friends, people who'd known me for years, who'd eaten at my table and celebrated holidays with me. "You want to know what's really pathetic?" Tomás continued. "You're so insecure that you had to destroy everyone else's happiness because you couldn't keep your own woman satisfied." "That's enough," Javier said, stepping between us. "Stay out of this, Javier," David snapped. "This is between us and your loser friend here." Something snapped inside me then. The weeks of humiliation, betrayal, and now this. My own friends turning on me to defend the people who'd wronged me. "You want to know what's pathetic?" I said, my voice deadly calm. "What's pathetic is 3 grown men ganging up on someone because they're too spineless to admit their own wives probably cheated, too." "What did you say?" Marcos stepped forward. "You heard me. Carolina definitely did with Alejandro. And I'm betting if I looked hard enough, I'd find out about the others, too." David swung at me then, a clumsy haymaker that I saw coming from a mile away. I ducked and came up with an uppercut that caught him in the solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping. Tomás grabbed a beer bottle and came at me, but Javier tackled him before he could swing it. Marcos tried to circle around behind me, but I spun and caught him with an elbow to the ribs that sent him stumbling backward into a table. The fight was over in 30 seconds, but the damage was done. Not just the physical damage, though David would be sore for a week and Marcos would have a nice bruise on his ribs. But the social damage, the final burning of bridges that could never be rebuilt. "Get out," Javier told them as they picked themselves up off the floor. "All of you, and don't come back." As they limped toward the door, David turned back to me. "This isn't over, Mateo. We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are." "They already know," I replied. "I'm the kind who fights back." After they left, the cevicheria slowly returned to normal, but I could feel the stares and whispers. Some people were clearly on my side, but others looked at me like I was a ticking time bomb. "You okay?" Javier asked. "Never better." But that was a lie. The fight had felt good in the moment, but now I was facing the reality of my situation. I'd lost my fiancée, my friends, and probably my reputation in this vibrant district where everyone knew everyone else's business. The smart thing would be to lay low, let the gossip die down, maybe even consider moving somewhere new. But I'd never been accused of being smart. Lessons from this story. Infidelity and deception often have deeper roots than a single incident suggests. Publicly exposing personal betrayals can lead to unforeseen social repercussions and isolation. People may blame the messenger for uncomfortable truths, even when they are the victim. Standing up for oneself against injustice, though costly, can be essential for self-respect.